This video is called Design Forensics, and probably we're going to turn it into a series. So we're going to be looking at two completely different rooms, but they have amazing interior designs. So we're going to be looking at Altbau and a new build. An Altbau, if you don't know, it's an old building, a period building with high ceilings, with period features. Obviously, those already add to the charm of the room and enhance the beauty of it. On the other hand, the new build, we all know how sterile they can be and quite boring. I want to show you two rooms today, and probably you will see them here on the screen side by side. And one is an old building, the other one is a new building. The old building obviously has period features, has high ceilings, and the new building is just your, typical boring new build. So there's no architectural interest, and yet both of them look absolutely incredible. Both feel warm, layered, textured, collected most of all, and personal, which are the most important things to look at these days. And you might be wondering, how is this possible when the rooms and the builds are completely different? So this is what I'm breaking down today. Whether you live in a 100-year-old Altbau like myself, or a brand new apartment, the principles are exactly the same. Just the execution is different. So let's get into it and let's see what we can learn from this. All right, let's start with the Altbau first of all. And the first thing we notice is the grandness, the scale, the drama of the room itself, without the furniture, if you can imagine it that way. But it's not cold, it's pretty warm, despite of the fact that it's a big room. And obviously this is not by accident. This is what we're going to be looking how to create this kind of atmosphere in a room that is too big or too tall, let's say. And these ceilings are probably around 3.5 to 4. Mine are 3.5, I think, 3.6 meters high. And although you would think, oh my God, that is absolutely amazing, I wish I had that, it is so difficult to work with because you have so much height that you have to fill in order to give the room a proper scale. Imagine having all the furniture at the bottom, and barely anything on the high, tall walls. It's going to make the room look sunken in. And this is not the case here, although I think they could have had, for example, on the left-hand side here, a very, very big piece of art to basically fill up that space. But what I think this is actually a TV. Not sure. Could be a TV. So I think that's fine in that case. Also, the first thing you can see in this picture is this big pendant. It is massive. Obviously, it's very in shot, but this is one thing that you can do and you should do in these Altbau rooms and these tall rooms is work with scale as big as possible. Imagine if we had a very small or just a small pendant. This is probably double that than the normal, and the pendant fills up the vertical space and it draws your attention to the height of the room, actually accentuating that, because that is a feature when it comes to Altbaus, although sometimes it occurs as well, as I said earlier. So it adds kind of like a bridge between the architecture and the furniture. So this is where we're talking about the scale rule, as I said. In a room with extreme proportions like this one, you need at least one element that matches the architecture's scale. And in this case, we have the pendant. And this is something that you can actually incorporate easily. They are expensive. Let's say not the paper lampshades. These are affordable. But in general, big sculptural lights are expensive. And I get it. But this is an option. As I said, if you have big artwork, again, we're talking about scale here. Use artwork as a way to activate the upper portion of your walls, especially the parts where the furniture cannot reach. And in this case, there's no shelves, no anything of that sort in this room. So I would have added on that wall with the TV. I don't know if it's even a TV. I would have added a big piece of art. Or on the other hand, on the other side, with the couch, I would have replaced that smaller one with a bigger piece of art. Still, the room looks pretty nice, pretty good, but there is room for improvement, right? So keep in mind, if you don't use your upper space of your walls, that space is dead space, and it's going to make your room look kind of stumpy, you know, like there's something wrong with it and you cannot really tell what the problem is. And most of the time it's something to do with the walls. As I said, always scale up when you can. Okay, let's talk about the I wouldn't call it clash, the tension between the eras. As you can see, we have this very sculptural fireplace. It's very Altbau, you know, very ornate. And then on the other hand, we have the tubular steel chairs and the leather Togo sofa as well. And this is actually my favorite part, and I love to incorporate this kind of elements in designs. The fireplace is a classic, so we bring the classic charm into the room. Hand-carved marble, and those chairs are sleek, industrial, 20th century steel and leather. Normally, these two have no place being together in the same room, right? Normally, you would think, okay, I have this fireplace, I have to go and, you know, find pieces that are from that era. No, wrong. That's why this room works so well, because we have this tension between the pieces in the room. And whenever you hear someone speaking about tension in a room, this is what they mean. Something makes you think that that object does not belong in that room normally, but it doesn't look bad. It's just something that makes you be like, oh, what is this? This is nice. I like it. It's very interesting, you know? So a room needs to give you that feeling of, oh, this is cool. Not be, okay, I'm just sitting here in this bland room. I would say this is what I think. As I said, so this works. Why? Because contrast creates interest. When everything matches, your eye has nothing to hold on to in a room. And probably you have heard this before. This kind of tension creates energy in the room and makes you feel like each piece makes the other more interesting. So they enhance each other's features very well, I would say. And when you hear the word collected room, this is what it means. It's not something that you focus on. For example, let's say farmhouse style. I hate that style, but you have that style in the room and that is the only style that you have. Some people might like this style, or this type of design where you have a specific style in the room. I personally don't. I prefer to do this and live a beautiful life and an interesting life and a collected life. So basically not curating from a catalog, just collect it by yourself or by your interior designer, either from your travels or from whatever, just collect it. Also, as you can see, the colors connect between each other. Cognac leather echoes the rug's tones and the wood furniture here and there. They don't match in style and they shouldn't, because otherwise it would be so boring, but they match in temperature, and that is the most important thing. So the lesson here is, if you have period details like you see in this room, don't furnish everything in the same style. The contrast between the old and the new is what makes this room feel alive. And I guarantee you, you will love it, especially if you are, curating the pieces of furniture yourself, or you have someone to help you do that. Now let's look at the materials that have been used here. So we're talking about layered textures here, where we're talking about materials. As you can see, I think the fireplace uses marble. So we have marble, we have wood, we have leather, we have probably the carpet might be wool. It's fantastic. The paper pendant as well. I think the walls might have some sort of texture. Maybe, I can't tell exactly. I think there are about 9 different textures here. And texture creates dimension, and this is what most people forget or they don't think about. And that's why sometimes you have the feeling that your room feels flat because there's nothing interesting happening in terms of texture. You have every surface at the same level when it comes to the materials that I'm using. Okay, probably you have cotton everything, or yeah, mostly, or a room with neutral colors, let's say, it still feels luxurious if you use various textures. Matte next to shiny, for example, soft next to hard, rough next to smooth. These are some principles that you have to think about. In a room with amazing architecture, texture is that thing that amplifies what it is already there. So it is extremely important. Now let's look at the elements that are grounding this room. We have a rug, we have a coffee table. In a room this high, this big, you would feel like you were floating around, right? But as you can see, they have a layered rug, which is very important to also create an area where you can lounge. So that is the lounge area. It is already determined because of the rug. So the rug has rich colored tones. We have a solid coffee table here. So basically this is the gravitation center, let's call it like that. Tall rooms especially need grounding. So everything works together. All right, now onto the second room, and look at this fabulous room. I also love it. I would move in right away. I would not give up my Altbau, but I would love to live here in this room. So this is where it gets really interesting, because you would not think necessarily that this is a new build. Generally, the new builds need to work a little bit harder to become, you know, an amazing home, not like the Altbaus. So we have standard ceilings, flat white walls, although this might be some sort of white, not sure, probably the photo is also edited. No fireplace, no moldings, no herringbone flooring. The flooring here is beautiful, but it is not herringbone. Empty. This room would look like any normal modern apartment. And yet, they did such a great job here. It's magnetic, honestly. So I will give you a second to think about what you see here, what attracts you the most about it. And I would say that is the layering of all the lights. So the rice paper kind of gives you an ambient light, although I never like to turn these lights on. I don't like overhead lights. And probably I'm not the only one. Low lamps with different levels, wall-mounted sconces on next to the art as well. That is absolutely fantastic. It looks like some sort of sculpture in itself. And what's not there, actually, the overhead lights. Yeah, they have some of these spotlights, but probably they're not using them at all. And yeah, this is fabulous. So when your architecture doesn't give you any drama, lighting is the most important thing. And I would say that lighting and texture are the most important things in general, but lighting is, and especially layering your different types of lamps, sconces, is one of the most important things that you can do and add to, for example, a new build to make it more interesting. And obviously, warm light, not the one that you see in offices or the one that you see, I don't know, in the supermarket. No, we need warm, we need calm light. And this creates that the flat ceiling doesn't provide, or the walls, for that matter. In the Altbau, the double height ceilings created that drama for us. Here, the lighting creates it instead. So, different tool, same result. As I said, in a new build, forget about the overhead light. Have that, obviously, for whenever you need it. As, you know, looking for something, or you need more light coming from the top. Absolutely, have it. Obviously, it needs to be, but ignore it on a daily basis when you don't need it. Add a floor lamp, table lamp, and the wall light, all warm. You are basically sculpting your space with light. There's a thing called light design, and it's a practice in itself, and that's for a reason. As we have seen in the Altbau, the fireplace was kind of the main actor in the room, the main character. Here we do not have any architectural star to talk about. So the furniture that we place in the room needs to be that thing that elevates the room. We have a mid-century modern sideboard here, a leather chair that looks like it's also a vintage piece, not mass produced. Very important, both of them are vintage pieces. We have a long bench. I'm not sure about this bench. Probably could be the inn's bench. I'm not sure. But nevertheless, even if it's a new bench, it looks like it's vintage because of the type of wood or the color of the wood they use for it. So each piece here has weight and personality. Not to talk about the couch. That is also most likely a new piece. It's not vintage. I don't know, but it makes the room, feel elevated. So in a room without character, the furniture becomes the character. It doesn't have to be expensive. I have also bought a lot of vintage items for my home, including this desk that you see here that I'm using. It's a vintage piece. It needs to be refinished, but I love it. It's not a desk from IKEA. This is a desk probably from the 60s. And it's still working today. How fabulous is that? And as you can see, this room is full of someone's actual life. This is not staged for Instagram. People actually live here. They have books probably they have read. They have a record player in use. Art that probably means something to them. Oversized painting adds some color, scale, and it has a focal point to an otherwise blank wall. Imagine the wall without the painting. Wood boring, even with the scones on it. So what we're drawing from this is that you have to fill your new build with your own curated items. Obviously, place them in a very nice way. Do not clutter your home, but take some inspiration from here. Yeah, they have all their books there stacked. They can pick up one anytime and just sit down and read. Now let's look at the materials used in this room. So here, every material seems to have been a deliberate choice. I think the same about the Altbau, except obviously for the fireplace that was already there. So they used the walnut instead of white laminate that you would get from Pesta from IKEA. They bought this vintage sideboard. They have this cognac leather chair, again a choice. They did not go with some kind of gray IKEA lounge chair. Again, fabulous. The rug itself, rich blue instead of a thin gray rug. Also a fantastic choice here, and it elevates the room so much. The contrast between the walnut, the brown, and the blue is interesting, and it works so well. It's warm, it's cold, it just balances the room. So every choice here pushed this apartment into becoming a home. And this is what we actually want our apartments, houses to be. Homes. To us, not to others. In general, the new builds default to cool, and sometimes you get an apartment with gray floors, but there are solutions for every issue of this kind. The lesson here is to use natural materials as much as you can, warm tones as much as you can. That is the secret. And texture. Here they had to add a curtain here, and also it adds softness to the room. On the other hand, as you see here, the windows do not have any curtains, although I would have recommended that. The room would have been so much more interesting and softer, and it would have added a little bit more texture than it has already. Nevertheless, beautiful, both of them. I wouldn't know which one is actually my favorite. I think I'm oscillating actually towards the new build. In this case, I really love this one. Okay, so this is what I want you to see now. Okay, they both have warmth. They both have vertical interest. Both have focal points. both feel collected. Here, they have used here same principles, same goals in completely different types of buildings. This is what design is actually. There aren't actually rules to follow, but there are principles that you can apply to your home to make it look like this. And my suggestion here is stop copying specific rooms. Absolutely don't. You have to start understanding the principles. When you understand why a room works, you can make any room work. If you'd like to see more videos like this, do all the things that you know you have to do, subscribe and like this video, and I'll see you next time.